Hi, this is Bob Herzog with the Silver Lake History Collective. We are here at the DiMarco's home at 1631 Angeles Avenue in Silver Lake, 90026. And we're here with Tony and his wife, Donna, who is sitting off to the left, and I will get on camera eventually. Anyway, thank you both for allowing us to come into your home and to record your oral history. Tony, why don't you start by telling us who in your family arrived here first?
Okay, well, my grandfather and grandmother, DiMarco, came here right around 1920. They originally were from Sicily, and they came to New York in about 1895. From New York, they went to Providence, Rhode Island, and then Grandpa moved the whole family out here, or as I say, around 1920. That would include my dad, who was the youngest of three brothers. His name was Charles, and his two older brothers, Ralph and John. Ralph was married at the time, so he brought his family out. My dad and my Uncle John were not married, and the family came out, settled in the Silver Lake area, right down off of Scott and Coronado, and went into the macaroni manufacturing business on North Broadway, downtown, and stayed in that business until right after Prohibition. They went into the winery business. My grandfather started the winery, which was located in Hollywood, probably the only winery that ever has been in Hollywood, California. It was on Santa Monica Boulevard at La Brea, where that big shopping center is now. That was the original building. That was 1934, and it eventually became the second largest grossing winery in California.
Very interesting.
So that's kind of where we are. My dad built this house in 1927. So I grew up in the place. It was the only house I knew as a kid, and lived in Silver Lake most of my life.
Tell us about what it was like being a child here, growing up in this neighborhood.
Well, if I did a Rip Van Winkle and went to sleep for 50 years or 70 years and came back here, I would recognize the neighborhood. It's changed, of course, but not that much. I mean, it's not to the point where you'd say, wow, where am I? You'd know where you were. And I think the big change over the years has been the change that's taken part in all of Southern California, the population growth and the traffic. Back in my youth, the town was a lot smaller as far as population was concerned, and there was a lot less traffic. When I was a kid, I used to be able to play out in the street here without worrying about getting hit by a car. We'd have to move once in a while, but not very often. Now, there's traffic here that's just, you couldn't possibly be out in the street playing as a kid.
What kind of games did you play?
Well, we used to play baseball. We'd get down at the bottom of the hill and hit the ball up. And then during football season, we'd play football. And there were a few kids that lived on the street that were my age. And then some of the other kids in the area would come over, and we'd have a good time.
Did you make your own scooters, or did you roller skate? Or
we would ride the scooters down the hill and roller skate down the hill.
The old-fashioned roller skates you put on with the clamps and the key on your shoes?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a good hill, you get a little ride down that way. But mostly we'd be out there playing ball. That was what we do a lot.
Where did you go to grammar school?
I went to Mitchell Traina, and then to Thomas Starr King, and then John Marshall, and USC. So I stayed in the area.
What happened after USC? What did you do after you graduated?
I kind of did things backwards. I went to USC right after the war, and when I was there, we had the biggest enrollment of all the guys on the GI Bill. I think there were very few high school graduates at USC at the time. The majority of students were GIs or ex-GIs. So I went, as I say, I did it backwards. After I got out of school, I went into the Army. I got drafted during the Korean War. I spent 2 years and 1 day in the Army. I'll never forget that they got an extra day out of me because they didn't swear me in until my second day in the Army.
You know, I got ahead of us a little bit. You talked a bit about being a kid here in the neighborhood. Tell me about your teenage years. What happened when you were going to high school and some of the activities you were involved in? And did you have a girlfriend or a hot rod? Or?
Well, you know, things were kind of quiet as a teenager because it was right in the middle of the war. And at school, they restricted a lot of the activities that we would normally have been involved in. I remember one thing because it kind of affected me. I was going to go out for baseball because that was my favorite sport and probably the one I was the best at. And they canceled baseball the season I was going to go. So I eventually went out for track instead of that. But we were not we didn't have the ability to travel a lot because of gas rationing and so on. So my teenage years were kind of quiet, you know, going to school, and we would have fun. We'd get together with the schoolmates and so forth, usually at somebody's house, and basically that was pretty much it.
Any school dances on Friday nights? Or?
Yeah, I was never much for dancing and never did never did much of that. I don't even remember if they had school dances then. But
the intellectual type.
Yeah, I've never heard the end of that.
So anyway, then after you were in the Korean War,
mm-hmm.
and you came back, tell us a bit about the war. How did it affect your life?
Well, I actually it had a big impact on my life, come to think of it, because I met my best friend while I was in the Army. I was stationed at Camp Roberts, which is about 250 miles north of here.
Yeah, and also about 250 degrees in the summertime.
Oh yeah, quite a place.
Yeah.
I did my basic training at Roberts. Then they sent me to Fort Ord for clerk typist school. They found out I could type, and they needed to fill a quota, so I got to go, which was okay. And I was there about, I guess, 6 months at Ord. Then back to Roberts, and I was going to be assigned to the Inspector General's office as a clerk, and the major who was in charge of public information at Camp Roberts found out that I had a degree in journalism. He was a journalism professor at San Jose State University. He saw my record and he said, no, I want him in my office as a public relations guy. So I ended up working in the public information office. While I was there, I met a fellow by the name of Dave Ketchum. Dave was, he was a stand-up comedian who went into the service, and he promoted a radio show which we used to do live from Paso Robles, KPRL in Paso Robles. And Dave had an assistant. He was doing the radio TV publicity for Camp Roberts out of the PIO office. And his assistant, who was a fellow by the name of Bruce Shelley, who also is in this story a little later. Bruce got sent overseas, and Dave asked me, he said, "Do you want to help me in the radio section?" I said, "I don't know anything about radio. I've never done it, never written for it or anything." And he said, "Well, come on," he said, "let's do it." So I said, "Okay." So Dave and I did a weekly radio show for Camp Roberts, which we taped and would release to most of the stations in the area, basically KPRL and Paso Robles, and then some of the other stations would run it as a public service. Well, Dave got out, and I had about a year left to go, so I took over the radio section, and I did a weekly show for Camp Roberts, half-hour radio show. And that was my Army life. I really didn't get very far. We, when I was getting out, I was offered a job at KPRL, but I wanted to get back to Los Angeles, and there was a little lady down here that I wanted to see too.
That was about, what, 1954, 55? 53.
Yeah.
I hope you were that lady.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, she was.
I figured as much. I remember you told me when you two married, and so I...
Yeah.
So that was pretty much, I came back home and went to work for the Deal Publications, which put out the weekly newspapers in the area, the Griffith Park News, the Los Feliz Hills News. The paper that covers Silver Lake was the Northwest Leader. So I worked there for 6 months as a reporter. And then Jerry Deal, who was the publisher, made me the editor of the Wilshire group of papers. So I became editor of the Wilshire Press, the Westlake Post, and Miracle Mile Press, and a couple other papers that covered that Wilshire area. From there, Dave Ketchum enters the picture again. Dave was doing a television show for NBC, and he found out that a publicist needed an assistant, and he put me together with a lady by the name of Pat McDermott, who owned a public relations company on La Cienega and Melrose, and I became her first employee. So I went into the entertainment public relations business. Did that for about 8-10 years, something like that. And then Dave and I started writing television, and we wrote a lot of television.
For whom?
We, we were on staff at Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and we freelanced for a long time and did a lot of shows during that time. I could give you a list of credits, but a lot of the comedy shows from that era.
But you were on staff and you did freelance.
We were on staff for a few years, and then we actually freelanced for a while before we were on staff. Then we went to work on Happy Days and Laverne for 2 or 3 years. Then we freelanced again after that. And then Dave retired. we
Took his money and ran.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
We kind of phased out of it, and I've done a little writing since then, but that's pretty much it.
When did he retire from the business?
Gosh, it's been, what, the late 80s, I guess, something like that. Yeah.
When did you retire?
Well, I don't know that I ever really retired. I still I have an office in North Hollywood.
Well, why should you if you enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah, you know, I still write. I don't do a lot of anything else. I've published some books, and we had a little publishing company that I've started, and just kept active.
What were your books about?
Well, I did I have a friend that I met through my writing. We did a screenplay based on the life of George Gipp, One for the Gipper, and we got the rights to the biography about Gipp called One for the Gipper by Pat Chaland, and we did a screenplay on it, and a fellow I met through some publicity that was done on the book, my name is Emil Kolinsky, who now lives in Florida. He has written 2 books, one on pro football before the NFL started. His father was one of the original professional football players, so Emil did a book about him. And then he also did the biography of Hunk Anderson, who was George Gipp's best friend and was the coach who succeeded Newt Rockne at Notre Dame. Those books were published in the 70s, and I republished them about a year ago, the 2 of them. We updated them just a little bit and put them out. And they're doing fairly well, you know, not great. I also finished about a year ago the California Winery Guide, which is a book that lists most of the wineries in California and has a little history of each one of them. And right now I'm working on the Great American Winery Guide, which will cover all the wineries in the country. As of the moment, I have almost 10,000 listings, and I'll have that out.
Is that the continental United States? Yeah. And I don't know if Hawaii
well,
and Alaska are big on wine.
Hawaii and Alaska have wineries also.
Do they really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
50 states.
All 50 states.
All 50 states have wineries now, which is interesting. California, of course, has more than double the rest of the country. California would be the 4th leading wine producing area in the world. It comes right after Italy, Spain, France, and California.
Interesting.
So, there we are.
Let me ask a question. Tell me how you met your wife.
We met through a mutual friend.
Donna.
I had been dating, nothing serious, a little girl who had gone to Marshall, was a friend of mine anyway. And she had a friend who knew Donna, and she introduced us when you were 16. And she was much too young, because I'm 8 years older than she is.
That's nothing really anymore, is it?
Oh, no. There's really no age.
Well, at 16, he was 24. You were jailbait.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah.
Well, I was an amateur photographer at the time, and still do a little bit, but so I took some pictures of her when we met, and that was going to be about it. And actually we took them over here, and my dad met her, and when I brought the pictures to her, I figured, well, that's the last I'll see of her. And my dad said, who's that little girl you took those pictures of? So I said, oh, well, she's a girl I met, and so on and so forth. And he said, are you going to see her again? And I said, she's kind of young, you know. And he said, she'll get older. And by golly, he had a point.
So when were you married? In 1950?
55.
55.
She was 19 when we got married.
I figured, I did the math. Where were you married?
Just down this hill at St. Teresa of Avila Church.
Right over the hill, yeah.
Yeah.
Still there.
Yeah, yeah.
And when did you decided to move in here with your father?
Well, what happened?
Was your mother alive at the time? The grandfather built the house.
My dad built the house.
Your dad built this house.
We lived in an apartment on Santa Monica and Normandy when we first got married. Then we had our first child, And then I think you were pregnant again, and we figured this was a one-bedroom place. So we found a two-bedroom duplex on Silver Lake Boulevard, right near
It's still
Glendale.
there.
And we moved there. At
Do you
the
remember
time,
the address? Was it near the bend where Silver Lake Boulevard turns and crosses Glendale Boulevard? It had to be right in
It's
there.
a block away from Glendale Boulevard.
Okay.
It was the next street over, and I can't remember what that street
That funny
is.
little
And then
street in there.
Then there's a house on the corner, and then there's the duplex. But I don't know what the address.
What market was in that complex? at that
Thrifty Mart was there on the corner where the savings and loan is now.
yeah, there were two markets at the
Yeah.
time.
Which one, B of A or City?
City.
Yeah, the one across the street. That area at the time was, well, it was called Mixville,
Right,
after Tom Mix.
right.
And the original market there was the Mixville market, where the city, what is that now? The
City.
Citibank.
Citibank. That area was the Mixville market. Where the Ralph's market was another market.
That was Market Basket.
Oh, they changed the name so many times.
It was Market Basket, then Hughes, and now Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So the Mixville market was the original market, then it became
Thrifty
some
Mart.
other, what
I
was
think
it?
it was Thrifty Mart.
Thrifty Mart or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they eventually put the savings and loan there. But there were two markets for a long time.
So you could walk to the market, no problems at
No
all.
problem.
When you wanted to do big shopping, clothing for you and your family, where did you go?
Broadway at Hollywood and Vine.
How did you get there?
Drove.
What were you driving? We're
Oh.
talking, what, 1960?
When we got married, I forget, what did I have? It was
I
probably
always
a
had
Chevy.
A Chevrolet of some kind.
Yeah. We never took public transportation because you're up in the hills here. You had to get down to the bottom of the hill to catch a bus.
You never used the stairways or elaborate stairways all through?
Never.
Never, okay.
Always drove.
Did you ever go downtown?
No.
We used to, when I was a kid, we used to.
Yeah, well, tell me about that.
Well, when I was living here originally, we
That's the dog.
we would shop either downtown LA, the May Company or Bullock's,
It was Robinson's.
the Robinsons, or in Hollywood at the Broadway Hollywood at Vine. Now, I don't think we've been to Hollywood or downtown in years. We do all our shopping in Glendale because, well, Hollywood, you know, kind of went downhill.
Well, there are no major department stores. in
Yeah, and there's no
Hollywood,
place to-
And downtown is shutting down.
Yeah,
It's coming back, but not for our generations.
yeah,
And Glendale is a 10-minute drive.
yeah, and you've got everything you need.
Galleria, and now the Americana.
Yeah, that's right. So that's been the biggest change as far as shopping is concerned. My mother used to love to go to the movies. So we would go to the movies 2-3 times a week, either in Hollywood at the Chinese, the Egyptian, the Pantages, or the Warners, or we'd go downtown to the Paramount or Lowe's State theaters. Now, you know, you don't even think about going to Hollywood for the movies or anything.
Do you ever go to the Vista?
You know,
It's been there since this house.
it's
before
been
the
there,
house was built.
and I don't think I've been to the Vista half a dozen times. Have you ever been there?
No, maybe twice.
Yeah. No, we didn't go to the, and there were two theaters right down in Echo Park. There was the Ramona and the Holloway. Never went to those. We used to go to the first run. My mother wanted to see the pictures as soon as they came out. So.
But my mom took me down on the red car, and we'd go to the Orpheum and the Los
Oh,
Angeles
yeah.
and watch films and eat popcorn.
Yeah,
That was back in the 40s.
yeah. What was the theater on on Alvarado. The big theater on Alvarado.
Oh, the Westlake.
Westlake,
down there,
right.
yeah.
That was really nice.
They're all, they're gone now.
No, it's all multiplexes, and except for the couple like the Los Feliz, which they converted to 3 cinemas. And
Now,
the
is the Los Feliz still operating?
still operating,
Is it?
same location,
Yeah.
Now, is the Vista still one, or is it?
one
multi-
theater.
It is.
One theater. They a few years ago they renovated it, and they took out every other row of seats. So I can sit in there at 6'4" with my legs out in front of me, and people can still walk in front of
Oh,
me.
gosh.
It's very
That's
comfortable.
great.
Yeah. When tell me where you went to eat when your kids were young. When you went out as a family, where did you go?
Well, you start with your family, because you,
Well, you know, when I was living at home as a kid here, we would go every Saturday night to Botwin's Cafe, which is where Tay's restaurant is now. And we would have dinner there Saturday nights. My dad was good friends with Noah Botwin, who owned the
Spelled
restaurant.
Botwin, B-O-T.
B-O-T-W-I-N.
Ah, Botwin.
And he was, as I say, the owner of the restaurant. Very dapper, well-dressed man. Did you remember Bot? We used to call it Bot. And in the 30s, I don't remember the exact year, but he brought in as a partner Hank Mann, who was one of the original Keystone Cops, who worked right down here at the Senate Studios on Glendale. And it became known as Bot and Hank's Restaurant. Hank was there mainly as a greeter to bring in the business and talk to the people, because he was very outgoing. Bot was a little more reserved. But then Hank retired, and it became Botwin's again, and stayed that way until Bot died. And I think his wife, who was the hostess at the restaurant, eventually sold the place to Tay's, which is what it is now.
And they moved from downtown.
Yeah, they were down on Commercial Street, and I think they did some renovations down there, and they lost their premises, and they ended up moving here. And I guess they've been there for 20 or so years. Longer, probably, yeah.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
Did you ever eat ethnic foods, Mexican, Chinese?
Not really, no. We used to eat there, or we'd go to drive-ins in Hollywood. There was a drive-in at Sunset and Vine. There was a Tiny Nailers up on La Brea, I think, and Hollywood Boulevard. And there was a drive-in where the Bank of America is now, down here in Silver Lake, which we would eat at, but not as much. We'd eat more in Hollywood at the drive-ins. And we'd go to the movies and then maybe go have a sandwich. And we had a favorite waitress by the name of Ruth, who used to wait on us all the time. You don't think you remember?
I do remember.
You remember Ruth?
Did you ever go to the TikTok in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, the TikTok was fun.
Donna, why don't you move over there, or over there, and I can
Come on here.
zoom in on you, or sit next to your husband. Let me make sure you're on camera.
Yeah, we get her on there.
This is Donna DiMarco, who's been in the
Tell
background.
about your mother, too. About your mother's family coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shoot, you're on.
Nothing like telling you what to do.
Why not?
Yeah, right.
Who else is going to tell
That's
me what
right.
to do?
You forgot your mother.
Okay, go ahead.
My mother's family came out here before my dad's family did. They were the La Pumas, and they came out from New York City right after World War I. And my grandfather, my mother's father, who was Marcantonio La Puma, opened a bakery on North Broadway and I think College Street. And they had a little bakery going there, Italian bakery, for years and years. And when my dad's folks came out, they opened the macaroni manufacturing plant on North Broadway, and I think it was across the street in that area. And then, as I said, they went into the wine business. But my grandfather eventually retired, but he had a successful little bakery that did very well back in those days. So my family history goes back to before the 1920s here in Los Angeles, and pretty much in the Silver Lake area. My grandfather lived with my Uncle John and his family on Scott Avenue, which is right down here. My Uncle Ralph originally lived on Coronado down there, so the whole family lived in the area. It's probably why my dad built here, because they had the business downtown, and this was reasonably close to it. So.
And where did you live before you?
Well, I lived,
married?
all over the city, really. My mother moved around a lot. But I ended up at Sunset and Benton Way in that white duplex. And I can remember at that time, at that early period of time, there was no traffic lights at Sunset and Benton Way. There was no stoplight, there was nothing. There was just, people just zoomed around.
Take your chance.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where I eventually moved there before we got married. That's where I lived.
And then you started your family, and we're talking about something kind of insignificant in terms of your life, but you were going to mention your restaurants that you liked.
Oh yeah, well I probably ate in just about every restaurant in town, but the TikTok was one of them, and one that I never ate at was the one that the Thistle Inn, which was right down here on Sunset and I mean on Glendale. And that was real cute. We never ate there.
A lot of people mourn the passing of that.
Yes.
It was a nice restaurant. It was a very nice restaurant.
Yeah. Of course, the Dresden up on Vermont.
In Los Feliz.
Yeah, that's a good restaurant.
Still going.
Still going strong.
Several generations have passed through those doors, both the front and the back.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of good restaurants, and still is. I mean, we're constantly getting good restaurants.
Where do you
here.
two go out when you do go out?
Oh gosh, Sizzler. He loves the Sizzler.
You love the Sizzler.
Which one?
I like Mimi's.
Mimi's is good too.
Yeah, yeah. But we do try to get around to some of the other, the nicer.
Oh, there's so many new places now. It's hard to keep up with them.
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, just. But that's. And then we would take the kids to the drive-in. There was the Vandy Camps down on San Fernando and I don't remember the other street.
Fletcher,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, sure.
We used to, after church, take the kids there to have lunch, and that was always fun.
Now you be good or we won't go to lunch.
That's right. Yeah. So
how long have you two been married?
53 years.
So any advice to the young people who are coming along thinking about getting married?
Keep a sense of humor. Keep laughing.
I always say you give 60% and you take 40%, both directions.
I can't do the math on that, but I like the idea.
Well, that's the math doesn't work out, but you take a little less than you give, or try anyway.
No, you two have been terrific. What I'd like to do, I have to take those still photos, but I'd like to take the camera out and come to the front door and say hello, and then just take a little walk around that, like you took me on before we started the interview.
Okay.
Because it's a beautiful old house, and I think people should see it for the record.
Great, we'd love that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Oh, anything you want to add? Any stories you want to tell?
No, other than the fact that we lived on Silverwood Terrace.
Oh, please.
Our property lines joined.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that. That's another address right here.
Well, what happened when we moved down on Silver Lake Boulevard, my dad one time said, "There's an empty lot in back of my house." He said, "Why don't you buy it?" And I said, "Well, okay." He said, "Buy it and then sell it." He said, "You make a little money on the deal." What happened was there were 3 lots on Silverwood Terrace, and they sold 2 of them and built 2 duplexes, and then they had the 1 lot that remained, and that butted up against the backyard here of this house. So anyway, so I said, okay, so I bought it for $3,000.
And what year?
In 1958, around there.
$3,000.
Now, I put it up for sale for $3,500. Did not get one taker.
It would have been a nice profit,
Right.
relatively speaking.
I tried to make $500. So my dad said, well, he said, maybe you should build, and then you'll be able to sell it a little easier. And I said, okay. Dad was pretty hip to do anything. So anyway, so we built, and built what turned out to be a mid-century.
Yes.
We later found out
Yeah.
that's what they called it. Anyway, at that time, I guess, did we have the 3 kids by then?
We had 2.
2 and another one on the way.
Yeah.
So we said, well, let's move in. It was a 3-bedroom with 30 stairs up, going up to the front, which she never let me forget. And we lived
Particularly if she
there.
was pregnant.
Yeah, yeah. Carrying groceries.
Oh my.
Our short-term stay there lasted from 1959 until we moved back here in 2004.
4.
So we were there a while.
Yeah, we did not move at all.
But that was 1630 Silverwood Terrace, which
And you're 31, Angeles, so.
yeah,
right
31
behind.
Yeah.
acres. But
we're right.
the back lots or yards butt up against each other. So we had clear sailing between the 2 houses, which was great for the kids because they could run over and see the grandparents whenever they wanted. And it was great for us because we had our built-in babysitters. And it was good.
It worked out.
It was great for the kids because all the neighborhood kids would come and go between the 2. And the kids played out on Angeles or they played on Silverwood Terrace. They were back and forth. So that all the kids in the neighborhood came either way too. So it was, I always said, the Kennedys had the Kennedy compound. We, the DiMarcos, had the DiMarco
The
compound.
DiMarco compound.
A little
in
smaller.
Silver Lake.
A little smaller, but we had our compound.
And you had a lake.
Yeah, we had a lake.
Over
yeah.
there.
That's
Yeah,
right.
sure,
That's
we
right.
could look out there. You know, it was great. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Okay.
great. Nice
Bye.
story.
See.
I'll turn this off.
I will. Let me add one
Okay.
thing about this house. My dad used to bring all his cronies over. My dad belonged to the Oakmont Country Club in Glendale and had a lot of good friends there. And one of the fellows that used to come here a lot was County Supervisor Roger Jessup. Spent a lot of time here having dinner and having a few poker games.
Good. Who won?
Well, they all used to chip in and do okay.
Are you going to tell about the beer flowing down the
No.
street? No.
Beer flowing down the, you have to tell that now. Were you naughty? Were you guys being naughty?
Well, this was before my time, but I understand that a little beer washed down the driveway during Prohibition.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Were they making it? That was your father?
My father, my grandfather, my uncle. Actually, they had a license. During Prohibition, you could make liquor for medical purposes, which they sold out of the drugstores. And they had a license to do that because they had a lot of political clout. My family was pretty well connected politically back in those days. So it was not bootlegging, but it was, they were making some liquor.
That's what they said.
Well, I'm sure they had to sample it to make sure it wasn't poisonous.
A lot of samples. A lot of the judges in downtown used to get their samples.
For medicinal purposes.
Right,
Uh-huh.
right.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a great story. Okay, well, this is Bob Herzog. On the 24th of March, 2009, we are at 1631 Angeles Avenue in Silver Lake. This is the DiMarco home built in 1927 by Tony DiMarco's father. And they also owned the home directly behind this one. We're going to, I'm moving slowly, Chuck. I'm really trying. Okay, now we're going to zoom in on the address. This will be a, well, let's walk it. Okay. Now I'm going to,
You want me in?
well, yeah, both of you in. Here we are in front of the DiMarco's front door. And we're going to get a, oh, look at this tower that rises up above us. We saw it from the street, but it really is a nice detail. There's another one to my left, which is the dining area, and we'll get to that in a minute. So try not to stumble as I come up the steps.
Come on in.
We have just completed the interview, the sit-down part, and I wanted to have a tour of their beautiful home. I'm kind of moving to the right, looking out the front window. The ceilings in here are what, about 15 feet?
I would guess, yeah.
Something like that. And the living room is very comfortably and beautifully decorated. We did the interview from that chair right there where Tony was sitting. And this is a pan. I know it's too fast, but to give you an idea of where they live. Beautiful tapestry. That looks so familiar. Okay, so turning to the left, here's the dining area. And please notice the inlaid wood on the floor. These are part of the original details that your father put in, right? Yes. Tony's father. I think we'll go to that dining room first. This is a beautiful carpeting too. What's the dog's name again? Your dog's name?
Fletcher.
Fletcher.
He was found off the Fletcher off-ramp on the freeway.
Ah, a perfect name. Fletcher also went to USC, you see by his collar.
Yeah.
We decided he majored in journalism and doggerel.
He's an old Trojan.
Don't they go together?
Yes.
Journalism and doggerel? Yes.
Yes, they do go together.
Okay, I know I'm panning too fast. Anyway, here's this wonderful dining area. I'm going to come right by you. Originally, there was linoleum on the floor, and when they took it up, they found this beautifully laid out flooring. And this would be a great place to have a meal with all of these windows. And we're going to look at some of the detailing of the ceiling. And as we were told, as Tony told us, I think it was Tony or Donna, there was originally a trompe-l'oeil fruit and ivy and vines.
Yeah, there was
up around this edge.
Baskets of fruit around the rim there,
and your grandfather painted it out because he didn't.
My dad, actually.
Your dad.
Yeah.
He didn't like it.
He got tired of it.
Very interesting ceiling.
But since he put it in, I guess he had the right to take it out.
Exactly.
There was also some work done in the dining room here.
This is very pretty, very well done. Looks like gold. I know it's a faux finish, but it looks like gold was put on there too. Okay, Donna, tell us about the kitchen.
This was the original cabinet, one of the original cabinets. We left it in the kitchen and painted it green. The rest of the kitchen was gutted and new cabinets were put in. House has been it's been renovated.
Hey,
Yeah.
gasp. This is the service area. There is a refrigerator and a washer and dryer out there, and then we have, these are the new cabinets, and a nice arched window, which opens.
All the,
Do that again.
the straight molding was all the original molding from the floors and things that we used for the window, but the upper part, the curved part, had to be made at the Disney Studios because the window man didn't have the tools, but he had a friend at Disney, and I understand a lot of the studios will take outside work, and they happen to take it to make
Oh,
that
interesting.
bird. They took the old molding and made it exactly like it, so it's part of it. That's what we call the Disney window.
Okay, recording. I really like this bathroom. This dates from the original, but it has a rather unusual floor tile that I've never seen before, and having been in many houses in all over the city, I thought that this was rather unique. It's kind of almost like a verdigris, a mottled beige with green in it. If Flesher pushes me over, I'm a dead man. These are the original built-in cabinets from the late 20s. And the lotus tile I've seen before, but it's very nicely done here and very well preserved. You know, other indications of the year of this house are the... Okay, we're going to go down into the basement. I'm coming down, I'm just shooting this so they can see where we're going. Oh my, I won't shoot. This is the basement room.
This is where I hide.
Your private domain.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Semi-private domain. And shelves and shelves of books.
Yeah.
I see a USC poster over there. Go Troy. Nice. It's a nice little den. Oh, there's another USC. Oh, this is a gridiron rug.
Yeah.
You know, the only SC memorabilia that I have is a cap that I bought at the student store last year.
Oh.
And I don't even wear it.
Yeah.
It's just there. It's part of a vignette in my bedroom. Okay, hold on. Say that. Okay, now say that. Your dad owned racehorses.
My dad owned racehorses. I'll tell you a real quick story about his racing career. He, my grandmother's name, his mother was, first name was Maria, and my dad bought a horse at Santa Anita near the end of the Santa Anita season some years ago called Del Marie because of her name. Del Marie ran 11 times and never got close to getting even third place. But we were running her one year, or one summer at Del Mar, and she got cut down. A horse ran up on her hind legs and cut her. And normally they would destroy the animal because she could never race again because it was such a bad wound. My mother, who loved animals of all kinds, told my dad, see what you can do to try and save the horse. So he did. He went to the vet, and the vet said, well, yes, we can save her. She'll never race again, but she could be a decent broodmare because she had good bloodlines. So my dad came back after they took her off and brought her back to the barn, and the man who sat in the box next to us owned a big ranch here in California. And my dad said, do you want her? And he said, okay, she'll be a good broodmare. So he gave Del Marie to this man. They bred her, and the first foal she had won the Kentucky Derby.
Amazing.
With the name of Count Turf.
Count Turf. Who was the sire was Count Fleet.
Count Fleet, yeah. Count Del Marie was the mother.
That's a great horse story.
Isn't that a great story?
They saved her, and she gave birth to the
Kentucky Derby
winner. Good story. Now we're recording. Tony has a story for us.
Well, when Donna and I got married in 1955, my dad decided that the house was too big for him and my mother, and he said to my mother, he said, let's get a smaller place. He wanted to move to Glendale, which would be a little closer to the Oakmont Country Club where he played golf. And so he said, let's put the house up for sale. This was 1955. And he put it up for $15,000. My mother was not too happy about it, but she went along with it until a lady came through the house to look it over with the possibility of buying it. And she saw the kitchen, which was my mother's favorite room. My mother was a great cook. She loved the kitchen. And the lady came in and she said, "Oh, I'm going to tear this whole kitchen apart and redo it." My mother said, "That's it." She went out, she took the sign up from the front, threw it away. My dad came home and she said, "The house is not for sale anymore."
Nobody messes in my kitchen, right?
Yeah.
That's a good story.
So the house would have gone for $15,000, and it's worth a little more than that today.
I think so.
So thank goodness for my mother's decision to do that.
All based on a kitchen.
Yeah.
Hi, this is an addendum to the interview that we just held with the DiMarcos. As I was leaving, packed up to leave, they handed me a little gift bag with a bottle of DiMarco wine. I was very touched by it. This is what the grandfathers did early in their history here in Los Angeles. This is a bottle of DiMarco Chardonnay, and there is a family history that came attached to it by a rubber band up at the top. And this is about the DiMarco winery. And inside is a brief history of the family arriving here from Italy, from Sicily, in 1890, and their progress into the Los Angeles area, and other things that you've heard on the interview tape with Tony and Donna DiMarco. This is really a very nice thing to have, and I was very touched by the fact that they would do it. But what's really important is that family history, which will be in the archive along with the tape and whatever other material we have on the DiMarco interview.